Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/EntitledParents Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen brags about making $500,000 a year and judges my husband's job. After that, Entitled Mom books the ice rink the wrong day and expects us to share. And after that, keep stealing my lunch? I'll put something special in it for you. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to make $500,000 a year. I make way more than that in store credit just by talking to managers. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen brags about making $500K a year and judges my husband's job. One of my good friends in college is now a doctor. She did her residency in gastroenterology. I am proud of her, and I have a lot of respect for her because I know it was a long journey. She was over at my apartment, and she was giving me crap because my husband works for a health insurance company. He works as a software engineer, making apps to help better detect fraud, and he actually did a lot of great work earlier to help detect pharmacies that had illegal activity. Well, when we were here, she was talking about how she's able to make over $500,000 a year, that she has so much flexibility with her timing, and that she can work for 2 clinics at once. I was happy for her. We were talking, and then she brought up that my husband works in insurance and said that's kind of scummy, that it's a really bad business profiting off people's sickness. I was like, what? My husband does a lot of great. She then goes on to say that insurance companies are the reason why healthcare is so expensive. I was like, what the heck? I got angry, and after about 5 minutes, I said, okay, you need to stop. You can't brag about making $500K a year, then get mad at my husband for being an engineer, and also pretending that you aren't in it for the money. Like, I get that your work is important, but don't act like you aren't compensated for it. She then gets angry at me and starts acting like I am jealous of her. I was like, nope. Now she is telling people that and saying I'm the jerk and that I'm jealous of her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Dr. Karen? Please let us know. Dr. Karen. Now that's got a ring to it. Entitled Mom books the ice rink the wrong day and expects us to share. Background. I'm an adult figure skater, and I practice in a big group of other adults. There are skaters going from beginners up to former elite skaters. During lockdown, the public rink we usually skate in has been closed, and occasionally we have rented a private rink for an hour to skate. It's a lot more expensive than our ordinary practice, but you gotta do what you have to. Also, it's incredibly hard to get these time slots since the demand is high. Skating is a safe sport, no worries. We are 8 people on the whole ice and change outside. It is all correct by our laws. A few months ago, we had rented the ice and arrived at our time. Since we are responsible and change outside, we couldn't see what was happening inside. Once I and one of the other skaters were ready to go on the ice, we headed inside, and by the rink side, we find about 10 parents and something like 15 to 20 kids ages 3 to 6. One of the moms, Entitled Mom, approached me with a worried expression. Karen, are you the ones that rented the ice? Me, yes. Entitled Mom, you see, we were just informed that we booked the wrong day. Apparently we booked next week this time, but we are here today. Me, I'm sorry to hear, what a bummer. Karen looks at me and the other skater. Is it just the 2 of you? The others are still tying their skates outside, and only the 2 of us had come inside. Me, no, we are a whole group. Can't we just split the ice in half? No. We're not here to joy skate. We're practicing seriously. For several reasons. The first and foremost, it is incredibly dangerous. If I run into your kid, they will get hurt, and I risk hurting myself too. But I mean, it's your kid. Do you want them to get hurt? I would never, ever let my non-existent kids on the ice during a serious practice. Secondly, we rent the rink to be able to practice freely. Half the rink makes it impossible to practice your program. Third, kids usually drag a lot of mud onto the ice, either on their coveralls or the parents on their shoes when they walk to the ice to help them when they fall. Dirt and mud is a big no-no for skates. It'll wear them out quickly, and we'll have to pay for resharpening. Okay, here I kind of felt sorry for them. We all mess up sometimes and it sucks. Can't be fun to reschedule an event like this, and I get that. It's what happens next that makes this story entitled. The mom goes to the other parents, and I hear her saying silently, "I guess you could come next week if that fits you." She then goes to the kids, points to us, and says loudly, "These people don't want you to skate. They want it all for themselves," with a super accusing tone, like we personally were responsible for her mistake. I ignore her and step onto the ice together with the other skater. This commotion already cost us a few minutes of our short time. I see one more from our group enter the rink, and Entitled Mom speaks to her too. I can't hear it though. This woman later confirms to me that Entitled Mom tried the same trick on her, guilting her into letting them share the ice, and then asked if the kids, now all out of their skates, could at least walk on the ice to touch it. Since they're all wearing shoes and mud rule still applies, my friend declines. Also, when the ice is newly resurfaced, it is crazy slippery and very hard to walk on. Big risk of falling and hurting oneself. The rest of our group arrives and we start warming up. Half a minute later, Karen opens the gate and lets two of the kids run straight onto the ice. I wave at her to get them back off the ice, and she waits purposely before telling them to come back, only they don't listen. She lets them slide around however much they want. Eventually, she has to walk out on her muddy shoes to pick them up and go back. Not a sorry, no nothing. Not the worst entitlement, but it still boils my blood, especially how she tries to blame us in front of the kids. Kids are usually very fond of looking at us skating since it looks cool, and when we skate publicly, we often show off whatever they want to see or teach them something. I hate to be accused of being the bad guy. Have you ever been ice skating? And if not, would you like to? Please let us know. I'd prefer to go sledding, to be honest. Keep stealing my lunch? I'll put something special in it for you. I attended first grade at a super conservative private school. I'm only 5 days older than the cutoff for being in kindergarten, so I'm the smallest kid in class, smaller than even all of the girls. My parents thought about waiting a year to send me, but I'm told I was super smart and bored at home, which pretty much condemned me to never having a chance to compete for most sports teams. More good background info. I was born when my parents were teenagers. My parents got married to do the right thing, but because of that, my dad works a factory job and money is super tight. I'm pretty sure in retrospect that my grandparents were paying for the private school tuition. We lived in what would be considered a rough neighborhood, and they didn't want me in the public schools. All of my clothes came from garage sales. I'm the stereotype of the kid who gets picked on in school. Little, poor, poorly dressed, nerdy. Despite that fact, most of the kids in my class were actually very nice to me. Like any school though, there were a couple of little jerk bullies, even at 6 years old. The ringleader is Charlie. Charlie is big. Charlie is dumb. Charlie picks on me all the time at recess and during lunch. Lunch is in our classroom at our desks, but our normal teacher gets break time, and some ancient old lady comes in to supervise. She never notices anything. Charlie has like every transformer ever. I have 2 GoBots. Charlie pushes me down at recess. He teases me relentlessly. He has a toady or two, and they're smart enough to not tease me when teachers are looking. Charlie makes my life sort of miserable. The one time I told on him, I got some BS from the teacher on the playground about turning the other cheek, and the bullying just got worse. A few months into the school year, Charlie starts taking and eating things from my lunch. At this point in time, my favorite food in the entire world is spicy beef sticks, like a Slim Jim. Mom gets them from the little grocery store and butcher up on the corner. I know treats like that are a financial sacrifice for the family, but Mom loves me and puts one in my lunch every day. Charlie learns he likes beef sticks too and starts taking just that out of my lunch. Finally, one day, I tell my mom I don't want beef sticks in my lunch anymore. I can't tell her I'm being picked on, but she sees through me. Grilling ensues. I cry like a baby and tell her everything. I don't want her buying them so that jerk can just take them and eat them. At this point, most parents would call the school or Charlie's parents. My mom had to grow up quickly when I came along, and in some ways, she just stopped growing up altogether. No way in heck she's going to call the school. Get in the car, drive to the store, pet food aisle. These will do nicely. Mom has a plan. We replace the beef sticks in my lunch with dog treats. Don't tell Charlie what he's eating. Not on the first day, not on the second day. Act normal, act upset. Wait until he's eaten almost all of them. Day 1, it worked. Day 2, keep eating the horsey goodness, Charlie. Like a week goes by. Finally, it's Friday. Today is the day. I put the bag of dog treats in my desk and made sure Charlie doesn't see it. Lunch rolls around. I wait until Charlie steals my beef stick and goes back to his desk. I wait until he's chewing on it. I pull the bag out of my desk and show everyone. I point and yell, "Charlie's eating dog treats!" The plan goes off perfectly, like it's Mission Impossible. Charlie spits the half-eaten dog treat out on the desk and starts gagging now like he's going to throw up. Some of the other boys start barking at him. The entire class is yelling and laughing and barking. Charlie gets up, crying, and runs out of the classroom. The old lady lunch monitor has no clue what just happened. She's only concerned some kid just ran out of the classroom and heads off to find him. The rest of us finish eating and go off to recess. I'm like a hero. I share the details of my heroic plan with other kids. No sign of Charlie all recess. Back to class. Teacher returns. Math or something. Vice principal comes in. The disciplinarian. The guy with a wooden paddle on the wall who'll get you for acting up. I have to go to his office. I'm about to burst out crying already. I'm so scared. My mom is already there. Charlie is sitting in a chair crying. Charlie's mom is there. It looked like he had thrown up on himself. Moms go into the office with the vice principal. Lots of yelling. I figure I'm done for. Mom comes out, tells me to go back to class. Charlie's mom comes out and tells him he's grounded for stealing and picking on me. Then she tells my mom it will never happen again. From then on, Charlie is nice. Super nice. He even invites me to his birthday party. I gave him a GoBot. Am I the jerk for selling and refusing to rebuy the family heirloom? Honestly, lockdown hit me, 34 male, and my wife, 32 female, pretty hard. I was let down, and my wife's salary isn't sufficient to support the both of us and our son, who's 3. We resorted to selling a couple of our important possessions to make ends meet. My wife and I had both decided our marriage meant more than her wedding ring. We decided to pawn it and received a sufficient amount. The ring was a gift from my grandmother before she passed and meant a lot to her. However, extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary measures. This was difficult for the both of us, but in the end, it helped us a lot. Fast forward to last week. I sold it around 8 months ago. I was in our weekly Zoom call with my extended family, and my mother casually mentioned the ring to my sister, who is currently ring shopping and preparing to get married in the fall. She asked my wife to show it to her again, which called for a very awkward pause. We knew we'd have to tell them someday and eventually let it out. My mother and sister were livid. My sister screamed at my wife and said she would have just asked our grandmother for the ring for herself if she knew that we'd sell it. We told her it was a dire situation, and technically we'd received it as a gift, granting us the ability to sell it if we wanted to. Apparently, the ring meant more to my mother than anyone. I had no clue of its significance, including the fact that it was considered the family heirloom. If I would have known, my wife and I would have reconsidered selling it. My sister called me a couple of days ago and apologized, and said she knew we were in a rough patch and how difficult it was for us. She asked us why we didn't loan the money from her, and honestly, it did cross our mind, but the feeling of remaining debt-free was too good to pass. My wife and I have been in financial trouble earlier where my sister's fiancé had helped us. We paid him back as soon as we could, but I still feel our relationship has been awkward ever since. My mother, however, is demanding we go back to the pawn shop and try to buy it from them. Since I was let down, I received another job offer and am making around 1.5 times as much as I did earlier. Honestly, we're financially stable enough to rebuy the ring. My sister even contacted the shop and they said they still have it available for purchase. But we made the conscious choice to sell it and told her we refused to rebuy it. I feel kind of bad, but it was still a gift to us. Selling it was more symbolic than anything and deeply strengthened me and my wife's relationship. Edit. I want to clarify that the ring is open for my sister to buy if she chooses to, but I personally will not buy it again. Am I the jerk for selling my family heirloom, then refusing to rebuy it? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. At this point, I would rebuy the ring. I don't quite understand why he's refusing to just rebuy it now. I'm kind of at a loss for words. How trying to sell a Wii to a friend ended up with me losing money and burnt bridges. For some backstory, I had been friends with this guy, let's call him Sid, for what would have been 7 years if the following events didn't happen. Since I saw him as such, we did many activities together. many hangouts and sleepovers at my house. He hardly ever invited me to his, and even him staying for a week after his dad kicked him and his mom out of the house. Needless to say, we were close at the time, which is why I had such a hard time putting my foot down and even cutting ties with him throughout all of this. Prior to this mess, I had been thinking of selling my Wii console, along with the 2 controllers and 30+ games for a while, but I used to always set it aside or just forget about it. Around last July, because of lockdown, I decided I could use the money, so I started the process to actually sell my Wii. I researched a bit to set a price, 8,000 to 9,000 Argentinian pesos, so roughly US dollars 85 to 95. I had seen similar bundles nearing those prices online. Note, I know that some of the numbers in this story may seem messed up, but so is our economy, so please just roll with me. Now on to the story. Sid had already shown interest for the Wii, but because I wanted to sell it for good money and not take it out of a friend's hands, for whatever reason, told him that I would mostly like to look for a buyer on the internet. After much insisting on his part, I decided to sell it to him. Discounted, of course, because we were friends at the time. Instead of going for the original 8,000 pesos, I lowered it to 6,500, let's say 70 US dollars. He actually tried to talk me into taking 6,000, but I took it as a joke and brushed it off, telling him the price was firm. Even when I had made clear how much it was, he had a second problem. He said his girlfriend didn't like the idea of him spending that much. Yes, I now know that this sounds dumb. As always, hindsight is 20/20. For reference, he didn't live with said girlfriend just yet, and they'd been dating for about a year. Not much of a reason for her to have a say on how he spends his money. Whatever, he wanted to cut me a deal. He'd at first pay me 1,500 pesos for the Wii, and then 500 each month, US dollars 16 and 5 respectively, until the 6,500 were paid off. I decided to just take it. Like I said, I needed the money. The second problem was after we made the transaction. Since I lost the original box for the Wii, I decided to put the console, the accessories, and the games inside a set of 3 boxes as neatly as I could. I also, of course, turned on the Wii to see if it still worked and ran all of the games through it the night before. I did my best to make sure everything was in perfect condition, which it was. The only exception was the charger, which cable had a bit of plastic recoil from the transformer, so its wires were visible. I had offered to fix this, but Sid said he'd handle it. Well, a while after he came to pick it up, Sid sent me a message complaining that the charger's cable had broken. The messages had an accusatory tone, as if it was my fault, and not because he took the console without much care, opposite of what I warned him to do when he took it. However, reluctantly, I agreed to pay half of what it would cost to fix it. Other than that, things seemed to be going well. I took the 1,500, we split the cost of the fix, 500 pesos each. I took note of how much Sid owed me after that so I wouldn't forget, and waited. And I waited and waited for 6 to 7 months. In said time, I ended up losing my job and getting a gig that doesn't pay as much. I told Sid many times to please either just give me at least part of what he owed me or tell me when he could do it, because I was having a bit of a hard time. What was he doing in the meantime, you ask? He went out with his friends, including but not limited to our friend group, bought gifts for his girlfriend and took her on dates. And he bought an apartment. You read that right. He hadn't finished paying me back before settling a deal to move into an apartment, including the obvious deposit, rent, and utilities, which he actually used as an argument to justify when he didn't have the money. Needless to say, I got annoyed more and more as we approached February, with me not receiving another cent from Sid. Finally, during a phone call, he mentioned that he could finally give me the 2,000 that he owed me. Thing is, if you kept up with the month, he actually still owed me 4,500. So not only had he kept me waiting for half a year, but he tried to lowball me for a second time. I cut that conversation short, hoping I had misunderstood something. But no, I later reminded him to please let me know when he could hand me the 4,500 pesos he had yet to pay me. He started arguing that it was 2,000 pesos, because he had given me the 1,500, then 2,000 out of the 6,000, which I hadn't even agreed to. I tried to argue that 6,500, original price, minus 500 for the charger fix, minus 1,500, what he had given me, equaled 4,500 remaining. But no. He was convinced he actually had paid me more, even though he hadn't. After a short back and forth, He basically texted me that he was sick of arguing and to go to his house the next day to get the Wii and give back his 1,500 pesos, which he at first said was more. Thing is, I couldn't gather the money unless I managed to sell the console again. So I said that I'd give him the money as soon as I could get it. He either didn't acknowledge that statement or chose to ignore it and just said that he'd give back the console and to hand back the money. I was so frustrated that my mom noticed something was wrong and asked me what had happened. After I told her, she sat me down and helped me realize that Sid was an exploiter. I had been there for him more times than I could count, did many favors, and here he was doing me over. She was pretty mad about it too and asked me if I wanted her to come with me for support the next day, but I said it wasn't necessary. I still had her drive me there because I ended up running late to the time Sid had set for me to come around. Now, here's where I very likely messed up. I went the next day and took the console back, but I didn't have the money. I'll admit that this was because I obviously couldn't get it in such a short notice, but also because I felt it was hypocritical of him to keep me waiting for my money for 6 to 7 months, yet expect me to get it at the drop of a hat. Once I got to his place, Sid nonchalantly gave me the console in a suspiciously small bag. I didn't pay much attention to that detail, since I was tired of this whole ordeal and wanted to get it over with. He demanded the money and got offended when I said I didn't have it. Being almost out of patience, I answered, "Look, you kept me waiting for 6 months for this. Give me at least a couple of days." Then I got in the car and left. Now, while in the car, I decided to actually check the bag Sid had given me more thoroughly. That's when I noticed it. The 30-plus games that I had given Sid, all inside of their boxes and paper envelopes that I bought them in, were now 10 CDs tucked in a package. I called Sid, angry, and asked him where the missing games went. He had sold them, each for 10 pesos, not even a tenth of their actual worth, to pay for his half of the cost to fix the charger without telling me. I just blew up and told him that selling the Wii would be much harder now, then demanded he get the games back. His only answer was, "Give me 1,500 pesos and I'll get you the games." Now, all of this was on speakerphone, since I had my phone in one hand and the bag with the Wii in the other. After hearing this, my mom also had enough, grabbed the phone out of my hand, and tore into him as well. I ended up blocking his contact after I saw a text of his that read, "If I give you something, you're supposed to give me the money," which he had sent before the call. I was just tired of this train wreck of a deal and wanted to talk it out after taking some time to clear my head. Thing is, Sid didn't give me any time. He went to the group chat we had with our friends to throw me under the bus, claim how much of a jerk and a scammer I was, and then kick me out of the group. They didn't even know what was going on, so they got quite a surprise. To not make a long story longer, someone else put me back in the chat. We discussed it, and well, some harsh words were thrown around. Sid defended himself, saying he didn't pay me back because he had to fix his apartment, and that I should be more sympathetic. The thing is, he decided to get the apartment on his own. I didn't see how I was able to be held liable because he got a place he couldn't afford. He also didn't tell me any of this. He kept me in the dark, waiting for a payment that I never got. In the end, I was willing to negotiate to get the games back in exchange of giving Sid the 1,500. He, however, wanted to cut all ties because there is no friendship here. He didn't want the money back, nor to have anything else to do with me. And honestly, I just accepted this, not because of the Wii issue, but the whole thing helped me look back on more crappy attitudes that he's had, and overall him being a negative person. For instance, he once told me that I had too high of a standard for going girls I found pretty. Me being me. And now I have a Wii with over half of the games missing, which, as I later realized, he had factory reset. Something to note, the Wii was chipped, which means it had a program installed to run games that are not exactly original, but cheaper. This is common practice where I live, and the games usually work fine. Now, because of the reset, said program was gone, which means the games are basically useless. The cost to set it back up is currently 2,800 pesos, 1,300 more than Sid originally gave me. I lost money and games trying to sell this guy my console. As for Sid, I haven't had much news from him since I cut contact. Last I heard, he actually had a fight with another friend from our circle and left 2 group chats we were both involved in. So that's the story of how a failed attempt of selling a console cost me a long-time friendship and made me decide I'll never sell something to a friend again. I'll admit, I was sad because of this outcome at first, but life goes on. I'll just try again when I get the Wii back in selling condition, then move on with my life. If you read this whole wall of text all the way to the end, let me tell you that you're a legend. And I hope that this story has entertained you as much as it frustrated me. Have you ever had a friend try to take advantage of you like this? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I'm so sorry for what happened to you, OP, but your life's gonna be a lot better without Sid in it. Never trust someone who tries to blow up a Buzz Lightyear.
You deserve so much better. This will likely be my last post here. I know there's a lot here, but bear with me. I've brought you guys some of my ridiculous stories of dealing with jerks here in New Orleans, but I'm here today for those of you that have been servers your whole life and don't think you can do better. You can. I was a server for almost 11 years and spent 7 of those years at my last job on Frenchman. During that time, I saw 2 owners, 5 GMs, and countless employees come and go. I was there longer than anyone. Over the course of that time, I sacrificed just about every Christmas Eve, every New Year's Eve and day, every Halloween, and every Mardi Gras, which is a sacred holiday for us. I had to tell friends, sorry, I have to work, 1,000 times and strained all of my friendships. I came to work sick and unhappy hundreds of times. Once I fractured 4 vertebrae during a serious accident and was at work the next day. Worked through family members passing and almost never received leniency beyond, well, you're fine today because we were slow, but you need to get your other shifts covered. But that's how crap goes in the restaurant, huh? I never once received a promotion or a raise above my $2.45 an hour, even though I knew I was worth more and did everything I could to convince them of it. Typically, they retorted with something like, "We can find a new server to replace you tomorrow." On top of making nothing an hour, the pay didn't even cover my taxes, so I always got a $0 check and owed money every tax season. And this isn't specific to my job on Frenchman, this was every restaurant I worked at. There were some good times, sure. The money came fast and went fast. I had the pleasures of meeting lots of interesting characters. I can honestly say that my charisma is well refined now because of the industry, which in my opinion is a useful skill that I couldn't have learned anywhere else. A bit over a year ago, the restaurant closed because of lockdown. I found out a month ago that the job I worked at all that time reopened recently. They only called a few people to come back, and I was not one of the people. No, thank you for your service. No, how are you? They have just completely blown me off, along with several other employees that have been there for 3+ years. They currently have a "now hiring servers" sign in the window. I had no intentions of going back, but the way they rejected me has firmly cemented my opinions on that industry. Through all of my serving career, I never thought I could do better. I always loved tech. It was my dream as a kid to work with video games. However, I always figured I wasn't educated enough to pursue a job in that field. About 7 months ago, I applied to a job in video game QA, kinda as a, well, why not, expecting not to get it. To my surprise, I was hired. I'm getting decent pay now, vacation and sick time, which is amazing by the way, and benefits. I took a mental health day a few weeks ago, was paid for it, and they did not ask any questions. They love me and my work ethic, and I expect a promotion soon. I am 100 times happier right now than I ever was serving. I love my job and actually look forward to working instead of being filled with dread thinking, what's this crap show going to be like tonight? And beyond that, I love my life more now as well. I have a daily routine, a normal sleep schedule, and get to actually enjoy my weekends off. I promise you can do better. If you are reading this and feel the same way I did, please believe in yourself and move forward. You do not need to stay in the restaurant all your life. The restaurant industry is horrible, and you are worth so much more. You can find something you actually love. I did. You don't actually sell. I'm a service writer for a vehicle maintenance/repair shop. I have the capability to actually do the work, but I make more money for my company in sales, services, and parts. So my job started when I came in 2 years ago from a different company. They hired me because not only can I sell, but I can complete the services that I sell. Fast forward about 6 months, and they are so impressed with my sales that they inform me that I'm only to perform the work if there's absolutely no other technicians available to complete the job within a timely manner. I would still be receiving my bonus for sales, as the name implies, sales bonus. Great, so I get on it. I'm breaking records, bringing in new clients, teaching others to sell like I do. I'm making good money. Fast forward a bit more, and they transfer me to another location where I'm quickly outshining their top service writer who was never given the order to only sell. I'm still expected to just sell. I checked when I was transferred. Shortly thereafter, said other service writer decides to get in touch with the owners and say that I'm stealing commission. The way commission works is this. Service writer, whoever sells the job or part, gets some. Person performing the job gets some. So if you do both, you get more on that specific job. Pause here for a note. Well, I'm doing my sales job long-term by now. I've informed customers on previous visits that they are coming up due for such and such services. They come back and ask for me because, let's face it, I know my stuff, to get said services completed on schedule. Thus, they are coming in requesting services. Returning to the complaint that I'm stealing, the other service writer complained that because I'm not actually doing the work, I shouldn't receive any commission at all for services. He backs it up with the fact that customers are coming in requesting services, and therefore I'm not actually doing any actual selling, simply benefiting from customers crossing my path who are asking for commissionable services. Keep in mind, these are customers I've reached out to already and put in for future sales, on top of new sales that I work for on the spot as well. The owner decided to take his side, thus my new job description is to simply service write, no commission, don't perform services. Customer service only. You don't actually sell. These customers come in asking for those services, so you shouldn't benefit from them. Again, I'm fully aware that these are my previous customers whom I've given heads up that they will soon be due for certain services, but I keep my mouth shut. Alrighty then, I won't actually sell. I work for a bit of spare income. My husband is a wonderful mechanic who works at my original store, and he makes the big bucks in flag hours. Within a month, sales and services dropped dramatically as customers weren't coming in requesting commissionable services, and I'm no longer pushing sales at all. Why make them money if I'm not also making money? I'm not even allowed to perform the services, so there's no way that I can make commission at this point. Sometime later, the owner drops in, wanting to know why the store suddenly stopped making sales. So I told him, I don't actually sell, so my commission stopped coming in, sir. A good meeting with the other service writer later, and I moved back to my other store, redeemed of any accusations or theft with a raise. Commissions are back to the way they used to be, and my sales have never been better. The other service writer? He's just a technician now, not even allowed to work with the customers at all. Maybe a small victory, but a victory all the same. I triple dare you to listen to this video next, the one that just popped up. You're gonna love it.
I triple dog dare you to join as a channel member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. Or why not have us make a special video for you? Just head over to our Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.